Hi AP Seminar students, Mr. Muller here, and in today's video, which is very important by the way, we're going to be talking about the basic structure of what argument is. What are claims, reasons, or subclaims, depending on which book you're reading, and evidence. These are the basic components of how you write and present argument. We're going to be covering what those are today, and how you can break down line of reasoning in either a video, podcast, or any sort of print media. Hope you're excited. I'm excited. Let's get started. Now, the first thing I need to let you know is what argument is, because this is all about not only what you're going to be doing in this course, but what you're going to be doing at a university level or any sort of academic setting. You're writing an argument. Basically, you are trying to convince readers or viewers, if it's a presentation, to believe or accept your conclusions about a topic. You're not just stating accepted fact, the sky is blue. That's not argument. Argument is trying to convince viewers or readers of your position on a topic using credible evidence. It's not just persuasion where you're just trying to create some sort of nice flowery language for me to believe you. You need specific, credible evidence to support the argument that you're trying to make. Now, the reason why we focus on argument in AP Seminar is this is what you're supposed to do at the next level in university and in the academic world. When I'm doing my grad courses, I have to write argumentative essays using credible evidence to support the claims that I'm making. Not only do I have to try to convince my audience of what I believe, but I also have to attack other perspectives because arguments are never easily accepted. There are always multiple perspectives on that topic. Now, the example I'm going to be using in this video are that drone strikes should be made illegal in the international community. Now, that could be what I'm trying to argue and get you to believe, but there are plenty of different perspectives saying that drone strikes are good. So I have to attack those perspectives as well as convince you of mine. Now, first thing I'm going to do is give you some basic definitions. These are the cornerstones of argument. The first thing is a claim. A claim is just a statement about an issue that asserts a perspective. You've done claims for a long, long time. You just called them thesis statements. But when you write argument, we call them claims. Claims are the entire center structure of your essay or presentation. Everything that you say needs to be directly connected to that claim. And it needs to come from a research question, which we'll talk about in a different video. Now, let's say my claim is drone strikes should be made illegal in the international community. By the way, in lesson 3, all those perspective statements I made, those were claims. Now, just because I think drone strikes should be made illegal, I have to be more detailed than that. I have to give a whole lot more because statements to really convince you. Those become subclaims or reasons. Those are the because statements that support your claim, that go a little bit deeper than that claim. So, for instance, a subclaim for drone strikes could be that due to the blurring of lines between warfare and the disassociation of the devastation of war through drone strikes, drones should be made illegal in the international community. Now, the point is, I need to get you to believe that. So what I need is evidence. I need data, I need statistics, I need quotes from experts. I need hard evidence to convince you that what I am saying is believable. Because if you don't give credible evidence, that means don't go to a blog, don't go to Wiki Answers, you go to professional journal articles. You go to things that cannot be attacked due to its credibility. And even if you use a piece of evidence that has some questions about credibility, for instance, I might be citing something about drone strikes from an article in 1950, well, that's a long time ago. Why are you including that evidence? It doesn't seem credible. I have to substantiate why that evidence is credible in terms of the argument that I'm trying to make. The last definition I want to talk about is counterclaims, the alternate perspectives of that topic. I'm not going to be giving a good argument if all I do is tell you what I think based on the evidence that I found. If I don't attack the alternate perspectives, I'm not really making a credible argument. So I could say that in terms of, let's say, the subclaim of drone strikes blurring the lines of war, I could say that opponents of this or supporters of drone strikes will note that keeping soldiers out of harm's way not only increases the morale of the country that uses drones, but also saves lives. However, and then I throw in evidence to say that even though that perspective exists, my argument is superior and you should believe me. Now, there's a basic structure that you use for argument. Now, one thing I want to note is subclaims can have subclaims. Yeah, I know it gets a little confusing, but just think about if you're breaking down your claim into your because statements or your subclaims, you might have to break those subclaims down even more. You have to do what you have to do to make sure that your readers can fully accept the argument that you're making. Now, the basic structure, which we'll talk about all of these evidence a little bit more in further videos, first thing you have to do is contextualize your issue in your introduction. Make sure we have common ground between you as the writer and me as the reader, that we completely understand and have the foundation of basic knowledge about that topic to really understand the argument. We talk about that in a further video. Then you're going to create a research question. What was it you're trying to answer as you did research to craft your claim? Those are incredibly important to the research process, and we have a video on that a little bit later. Then you end your introduction with your main claim. Your body paragraphs are typically organized in your subclaims, and you use evidence to support those subclaims. Typically, at the end of an argumentative piece, you either have a solution or a conclusion section, depending on the evidence that you have and depending on what you're writing about. I could create a solution section to drone strikes saying that there is a particular law that's in place to try and outlaw it, and we should support it, and I need to cite particular evidence saying why that solution is viable. I could come to a conclusion saying, despite all the evidence that's saying that drone strikes are ineffective, we still have to compete with changing technology, and we have to make sure that the ethics of warfare are still maintained so that we can create peace in the world. And I have to tie that to evidence. I can't just say, here's what we should do. Well, who am I? I'm not an expert in this particular topic. You have to tie your solutions and conclusions to evidence. And yes, we have a video about that as well. Now, writers are expected to do a lot of things in arguments, and we've covered a lot of these issues already in this video. I just want to focus on number 5 and number 8. Two things you must do in argumentative pieces, whether you're presenting or writing, is you have to analyze evidence and you have to synthesize evidence. Analysis basically says, what does your evidence mean? If all you do is throw in a quote or throw in some data and don't tell me why that is significant to the subclaim you're trying to make, then you're not creating a credible argument. You have to tell me, why is that evidence credible? What does that evidence mean in trying to convince me of your claim or subclaim? And synthesis is incredibly important. It's actually one of the hardest things to really get in an argument. It's the idea of connecting pieces of evidence together or connecting evidence to your subclaim. Synthesis just means connecting. If you don't synthesize information, if you don't make bridges between pieces of evidence, or you don't explicitly state how evidence stacks together to support your subclaim, then it's like trying to put together a puzzle without actually connecting the different pieces, or trying to make a quilt without actually sewing the different pieces of that quilt together. It's going to be disjointed, it's going to be hard to follow, and it's not going to convince me of the argument that you're making. Remember, you are always writing to readers. We are not writing for yourself. When you're writing, you have to make sure that you're credible. A lot of that takes place with the evidence that you're using, making sure the evidence you use is credible, and yes, we talk about that in a later video. You also have to write well. The flow of your evidence and your claims and subclaims all have to be connected, because ultimately, you're not writing for yourself, you're writing for me. Now, the claims, reasons, and evidence are something called a line of reasoning. And one thing that AP wants you to be able to do is to break that line of reasoning down. So if they give you a video, a podcast, a newspaper article, a journal article, they should note, can you break down what are the claims, the subclaims, and the evidence used in that source? So let's practice that. I've got a video here. It's a TED Talk from David Epstein called Are Athletes Really Getting Better, Getting Faster, Better, and Stronger? I'd like you to watch this video, and you can just look for it on YouTube. And I want you to just watch the first 4 minutes. Just the first 4 minutes, not the entire thing. And I want you to identify, for this person's argument, what is their main claim? What is the evidence they use to support that claim? Pause this video, watch the first 4 minutes of the TED Talk, and then come back. Okay, so what was the main claim? What was the evidence that David Epstein uses? The main claim he makes that athletes aren't necessarily getting better, faster, and stronger, but the technology and training that we're using has allowed humans to break world records in different sports. Now, what evidence does he use? Let's talk about Usain Bolt and Jesse Owens. He says, if you just look at the times for the 100-meter dash of Jesse Owens and Usain Bolt, the times are quite large, the difference. But if you actually take the tracks, and if Jesse Owens would run on the same track as Usain Bolt and explode from the same blocks as Usain Bolt, the times would be much closer. So the only reason that Usain Bolt is breaking these records and having a much faster time than someone about 60 years ago is because of the technology that we're using. Now, you can do that for a newspaper article, you can do that for a podcast, you can do that for pretty much anything. And the reason why you need to be able to do that is you can't write your own arguments unless you can break down the arguments of others. Hope you learned something you did not know before. Thanks for watching.